real cryptid legends doing what they do, bringing information for me and you. Ron Morehead and his Sierra Sounds, Darrell, Denton, the Tennessee Bigfoot Man, along with Michelle, Desrochers, bring adventures across this land. So much information brought to you each week, actively out there looking is the truth they seek.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Two Real Cryptid Legends. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. So tonight is going to be a big show. So please know I'm not going to be ignoring any of your comments. We are going to be broadcasting on 8 different platforms simultaneously. The only one that will not have a chat room will be Roku TV. It'll be on X, Rumble. It'll be on at least 3 different YouTubes, a couple of Facebooks. And for those of you missing it, their archives will hit over 200 different locations, all of your favorites and a whole lot of extra. So as comments come in, and please know we've also had some emailed that we will be getting to them. I will be flagging them. I will even put comments up for all of the viewers to see, and any questions will be addressed as we go along. So without further ado, I will introduce, of course, Darrell, Denton, Ron Morehead. How are you guys?
Evening, Michelle. Evening, Brother Ryan. Thank you, Michelle, for the great introduction.
Pleasure, as always. So big show tonight. Very exciting. Now, this is a first, isn't it?
It is a first, yes.
Yes. Can you want to explain why?
It will be the first time that, as what we know as the Brotherhood of the Wolf, which would be members of the LBL research team, Mr. Ron Morehead, Barton Nunnelly, who is the founder of that, and Martin Groves, Elijah Henderson, myself, Darrell Denton, and Steve Causey is not a brotherhood, but he's a very close friend of ours. And as far as I know, it's the first time we've ever been on a live show together.
Wonderful. So do you want to start introducing? And as you introduce them, I will bring them on.
Sure. Let's start off with Steve Causey, who is the author of the LBL 1982 LBL Massacre.
Welcome.
Welcome,
hello,
Steve.
Michelle. Hello, Darrell, Michelle.
Hello.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Great having you. Next, we have...
We'll go with Mr. Barton Nunnelly.
Barton,
Barton is well known with his interview of some of the people that were involved there at the massacre. And Barton is an author and been on many TV shows and well known as a cryptid researcher. Well, excuse me, he doesn't like cryptid. A researcher of the unknown.
Thanks, brother. How you doing, Brother Indy and Steve and Michelle?
Glad to have you, brother.
Nice
How's
to
it
meet
going,
you.
Barton?
All right, next.
Let's go with Mr. Martin Groves, one of my closest friends for 46 years, and also a former police officer and a well-known gentleman who probably the best in the world with the dogman attack in the LBL, which almost took he and his friend's life.
Wow.
How you doing, Bubba?
Well, it is good to see everybody in here tonight in this house, and it's wonderful to be in the house with all of my brothers and my sister, And I was not going to be outdone tonight. If you guys just have such beautiful hats on, I thought I'd let me Irish go.
We love your Irish hat. We really do.
Good to see you, Martin.
All
Good
right.
to see everyone.
All right, let's go on with my close friend, Mr. Elijah Henderson, who's with Cryptid Studies Institute, and he and his dad, the late great John Henderson, did some interviews on this particular matter about the LBL and the massacre. Elijah is well known throughout the area of the LBL with his studies. Welcome, Elijah.
It's a pleasure to be here, y'all. How you fine gentlemen and fine lady doing tonight?
I'm fine. I'm just one of the guys tonight, so don't hold back.
Hello, Elijah.
It's a pleasure to see y'all.
Oh, thank you for joining us. So, Darrell, where do you want to start?
I think we would think it would be good if we started off with Mr. Steve Causey, since he wrote the book, the 82 LBL Massacre. Steve, that's okay with you?
Sure, no problem, Darrell. And while there are variations of this story, the basic story has stayed pretty much the same for over 40 years, which is an impressive testimony to the fact that it did occur. And as a matter of fact, myself and Martin recently had the pleasure of actually being acquainted with a witness that was on the scene of the crime. Martin, would you say this is an incredibly authentic witness?
Yeah, very much so. Someone that I had attended some schools with, and he was an incredible police officer, law enforcement officer.
But for those that are not familiar with the LBL Massacre, the LBL Massacre begins in the small city of Grand Rivers, Kentucky, which is located on the northern end of the peninsula in the LBL, with a couple of police officers getting a call and from a payphone. Keep in mind, this was 1982. There were no cell phones, and even cell phones are kind of spotty nowadays, even with the LBL, because of the lack of towers. However, they recently installed a tower that I was by not too far, actually, from where Mr. Groves had his experience. And the reason I know it was a recent installation was because they still had the reels with the cable that were down there, and you could tell it was a fresh installation. But the story begins with this young couple coming out and calling on a payphone. A couple of police officers meet them, and they explain that there's been a horrible murder near a camper, or at least the people they have seen are in pretty bad shape. And the police officers take the details. However, this couple refuses to accompany the police officers back to the scene. They are terrified by what they have seen. So the police officers take the initiative to make the radio calls and dispatch information as would be standard procedure with police radio and police techniques, as Martin would be quite familiar with. Upon arrival and everything, they do see the camper, and there is a fire that has been made by the, shall I say, former inhabitants of this camper that is dwindling somewhat. And at this time, many police units began arriving on the scene with rescue squad, Kentucky State Police. What they find is literally out of a nightmare. The father is in front of the camper. He has been mutilated pretty badly. And the mother is in the camper. There is a small boy that is right at the door, the story as I heard it. And it was obvious he was attempting to get into the door, but the trailer was, the camping trailer had a hinged door, and the hinged door was ripped off from the top and only hanging by one hinge. and what was inside was even more terrible or heart-wrenching, as you might say, than what was on the outside. The mother had put up a good fight, but it was obvious this was a futile fight. There were marks on the wall that resembled a human hand, but they were in blood. The mother was eviscerated, as I heard it, and torn up pretty badly. They thought the initial victims were only these three until they started looking in the back of the camper, and they found little girls' clothes about 9 or 10 years old. So they started a search. They had many units on the scene at this time, and maybe 150 to 200 yards is the story as I heard it from that. One of these police officers felt something dripping on his hat, and looked up, and unfortunately the remains of this little girl were in the tree. And as I heard it, she had been eaten on. It's a pretty horrific tale. I first heard the story in 1998, and I've got to say that Eliza and Barton and were very helpful in my book, and I appreciate their contributions to it. I talked to them as I was writing my book and was able to garner some more information. Martin Groves, actually, I always say I interviewed him, but it was actually an exchange of information. He's a police officer, and he interviewed me. But we garnered some interesting facts. One thing that was very interesting is that I mentioned to Martin when we first met that there were 6 coroners on the scene. One of these coroners was from Memphis, Tennessee. And I could see the change in his eyes when I said that, because he said, well, if they were going to call a coroner in, that would be like a head coroner or a regional coroner, it would be from Memphis, Tennessee. And he did confirm that a regional coroner from Memphis, Tennessee would cover the area of West Tennessee and portions of Kentucky, if I remember correctly. But at any rate, the rest of the story that I heard was that the military came on the scene, and they basically told the local law enforcement to create a perimeter around the park and close it. And I can tell you the park did close, because back at that time in 1982, I ran a little bait shop on the southern end of the park, right at the entrance there. My wife and I had been recently married, and my brother-in-law offered the shop to create a bait shop, and I sold gas and bait there. And I had more than one boat come back and ask me why the park was closed. And of course, at that time, I did not know. But it was in April. I do remember that, but it did close. And I thought that's peculiar, because they never closed the park at that time. All the campgrounds were new. I mean, why would you cut off your revenue by closing the park? So it was a very unusual event. And so that was confirmation. And once again, I always had a little doubt when I wrote this book, maybe 5%. Martin took a lot of the doubt out of it when we had our meeting back in 2023, because I realized that Martin was a credible, sincere person and a former police officer. I mean, you don't get a lot more credible than that. I'm not saying every police officer is credible, but I can tell you Martin is credible. And I was impressed with what he told me. And from that point on, I was 95 to 96% certain that this event had happened. Now, keep in mind, I'm skeptical by nature. When I first heard this story, I was very skeptical. I was on a fishing trip, and I thought, yeah, this sounds not quite real enough to be true. But after this last witness that Martin is aware of and I'm aware of, we're protecting the identity of this witness for obvious reasons. We don't, for one thing, the witness does not want to be exposed. But my percentage point that this event did happen is now at 100%. And I think Martin is pretty close to that too. Wouldn't you say, Martin?
Steve, let me ask you a question. Were there pictures taken?
I'm sure there were all kinds of pictures taken. I'm sure there was all kinds of photographs. This particular witness had a sketch, and a sketch of the creature that did the carnage out there. As you can imagine, if federal authorities were on the scene, this was hushed up very quickly. It would not have been allowed to get out. I'm sure there were pictures taken, but you will not find any news stories on this. You will not find any pictures on it. All you'll see is, and once again, you can talk to Barton and Eliza, all you're going to find is little giblets of information that you can kind of piece together. So as far as the picture goes, no, I don't think you're going to find anything. But this witness was able to confirm that the military was on the site. And this unit was from Fort Campbell. Now, whether this was special forces or whatever, I think some of the information was kind of, this witness chose to protect some of the information that was given. And the story, as I heard it, was they did kill this creature and they hauled it out on the back of a deuce-and-a-half truck, which is, everybody that's had any military affiliation knows that a deuce-and-a-half truck is a standard term for a 2.5-ton truck, which can be covered or uncovered. This creature was so large, it took most of the 13-foot bed of this. Now, I would assume that's with the legs stretched out and with the head near the bed of the truck. This creature was pretty severely mauled by automatic weapons, I'll put it that way. A good portion of the chest was missing.
Martin, do you want to unmute your mic? Yeah. Unmute your mic.
You mentioned your witness had a sketch. Can I ask you, do you know where that sketch came from?
Yes, it did. Without giving too much information to expose, this witness was a patrol officer, and I don't want to give a lot more on that for the simple reason that I'm sworn to secrecy.
Right.
And I don't want to do this, but
I'm asking, did the eyewitness actually do the sketch?
No, the sketch was made on the scene, and the witness did not make this sketch.
Right. I'm simply asking who made it, but was it?
I'm not sure. I'm not certain. Right? Nope. Yeah, no information was given on that. Okay. But this witness was able to confirm that the sketch made matched almost exactly the cover on Martin Grove's book. So that tells me that this was a dog man, possibly a gugway. There are different creatures that, have been documented. The gugway was documented by the Indians many years ago, back in the 1800s, if I'm not mistaken on that.
So you're saying, though, Steve, that the military shot it?
That is the story that I heard, and this witness was able to confirm that the military was on the site.
So they followed it, or how'd they find it? Or
they tracked it. They tracked it. Yes, they tracked it to a small cave, and that's where they engaged the creature.
Yeah, that's all new to me. I hadn't heard any of that, Steve. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
That definitely was part of Jan Thompson's story when I interviewed her in 2005. She made no mention of that at all.
I believe
the story. How stories are, they grow as the years go.
Yeah, they do.
And is added a little bit to, and and that's so the story grows and grows, and I guess it'll keep growing until it's the creature's the size of Godzilla before it's over.
Thank you, Barton. And I'm familiar with the story, and I know that you were the first person to interview her, and her story is very interesting. I believe that the police officers that were initially on the scene were pushed out of the park, and they didn't see everything that happened. So I think it's entirely possible when the military came on the site, as this witness did confirm, that more events happened. Now, did they happen?
Let me ask a question. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Steve.
No problem.
Barton, can you go into the interview that Jan Thompson gave you?
Sure. She contacted me in 2005. And,
You might tell the people who Jan is, because they may not
Jan
know.
Thompson is the one who initially made this story public. Now, ever since then, I don't know, maybe it was 2001 or 2002, but she contacted me in 2005, and I've just been contacted by a producer, documentary filmmaker from Florida, and he wanted to do a documentary, and he wanted to do a part 2 of a witness interview or something that he did called Keeping the Watch. And I said, well, John, instead of doing that, I got this story. This woman was telling me this amazing, fantastic story about Dogman. Let's go up and interview her. And so that's what we ended up doing. And she was a really, really interesting witness. I believed her, if she even broke down and started crying at one point during the interview. And you can all watch this on Hunt the Dogman, which is on YouTube. Very convincing witness. What she said, the story that she told, could not be verified in any way, in any form, which is often the case with these stories because they're above and beyond what our physical laws, allow, and what science can explain. So she was very convincing, and I know it's always been a point of contention since then. That was 21 years ago. If she made this story up. And I can tell everyone here for a certainty that she did not make this story up. She actually heard this story from several sources, right? But she was a gifted writer, and what she did was she took this story and she dramatized it a little bit, and to make it more frightening or whatever. And that's the story that we got. But the story itself is true because I've talked to multiple people who have heard of the story long before Jan Thompson arrived on the scene. As a matter of fact, I've talked to people that have seen the Dogman in the Land Between the Lakes as far back as 1948, 15 years before the TVA came in and took over. And I know Bubba has interviewed people and uncovered more witnesses that go back even further than that. So that's Jan Thompson. She could not, when she was asked to defend her story by the documentary filmmaker, she couldn't do it.
Can you tell the people what she told you that she witnessed?
Well, she witnessed this thing herself, her and her cousin, and a couple of members of her family. And I sat down and started to do a witness sketch of what she saw. I would do an initial sketch and send her the image, and she would say, this needs to be changed, that needs to be changed. And it took me about a week or two. She's very particular, every detail she wanted right, and so did I. I wanted everyone to see exactly what she saw. So I kept doing that until she said, that's it, it's perfect, it's what I saw. And that's the sketch of the beast of LBL that everyone's so familiar with these days. But yeah, her cousin was attacked while he was out riding his dirt bike in Grand Rivers. And this thing came to her house, and they had to barricade themselves in until their mother got back with the groceries. So Jan was a very creative person, and I think she was honest. Now, when she was asked to defend her story, we all have to defend our stories. If we see something, we hear something, we know it's true.
Right.
By damn, I'm going to get up and I'm going to tell everybody it's true. This is the truth. And it doesn't matter whether you believe me or not. I've done my job just telling you the truth, right? That's my only agenda in this whole field is to tell the truth. But when she was asked to do that, she would not. So she rather than do that, she just disappeared from the public eye. And no one knew where she went or what she was doing except for me. And I was in contact with Jan right up until the day she died. So I do believe her story. I do believe that she used a little creative license when writing it. But I do believe 100% sure that the story existed long before Jan wrote it down on there was a website called Guardian's Tales or something like that. So, yeah.
May I ask, was it a dog man that you sketched?
Well,
in your opinion,
they say there's 8 or 9 or 10 different types of dog man, right, Brother Elijah?
Yeah.
There's certainly quite a few variations out there, they say.
Right. I can't say for sure. It looked like a dog man to me or a werewolf, but then again, it had features that looked a little bit bat-like, and so I don't know what it was, Michelle. All I know is that's the picture that she said, this is exactly what I saw. So
pretty amazing.
A dog man or a gugway or any of the other variations or inhumanoids that are running around these isolated, remote wilderness areas. I can't say for certain because I was not there.
Yeah, just tapping into the energies of the conversation. It's exactly what I see in my mind's eye. Is exactly that.
Barton, thanks, brother. I want to ask Elijah, can you give us the breakdown that you and your dad, your late father, interview was about?
The witness or just the basic story as a whole?
Either way you'd rather go.
Well, okay, I guess I'll start roughly from the beginning. We found out about the Beast of LBL story because of that guy right up above me. So he was kind of the granddaddy of it all for me. We seen Hunt the Dog Man, incredible documenting, incredible story.
Mark. I appreciate that. That was the world's first dog man documentary, by the way. 20 years ago.
Really good. I actually, before we came on, I actually watched the Jan Thompson part again, and
did you?
It still holds water, man.
Excellent.
But yeah, way back around, I think it was like 2015 or actually it might have been a few years before that even. My good friend Nathan Davis was in town, and we watched that documentary, and we decided we'd go look for this area where this supposedly took place. And after a little bit of research, after a little bit of work and whatnot, they came upon the location down by the water. I'm sure all y'all are very familiar with that spot down by the water. We went down there, took pictures, checked it out and whatnot. And throughout the years, we kind of, would make occasional trips to Land Between the Lakes. Been going since at least
excuse me.
Actually, I think it's at least 2011. Been going down there. But anyway, long story short, me and my dad, we decided to make a little documentary on it, and we decided to analyze it from multiple directions, from Jan Thompson's perspective, from Tim Kumbo Baker's perspective, and the area that we always thought was very fascinating that might be the site where it happened was when you pull down that road, and then there's the Iron Gate, and then you pull down that road, and there's the bunkers all the way at the end. There's the famous picture there that you see all over the internet.
That was Jan Thompson's creature that she saw, yeah.
It kind of looks like a canine monster instead of anything like a...
Well, it's got bat-like features, It's not a typical dog man that has a German Shepherd head or anything like that, but I would hate to run into that thing myself.
That's been... Barton did a great job on that sketch work.
Thanks, brother.
It's become very famous. It really has. Been using a lot of things without your permission. So
thousands of times.
Without
my permission. But that's the way of the internet, right?
We're at this point.
Go ahead, Elijah. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You and your dad. You and your
But yeah,
dad
we
did
did
that.
a documentary and just try to look at it from multiple sides. From the perspective it could have taken place down by the water, from where it could have taken place over by the bunker. And we just really tried to delve into the subject. Listen to a lot of other documentaries on the subject matter, and spent a whole lot of time down there in the park. We spent the night down in where the attack supposedly happened and whatnot. And I guess it was after that documentary I met you, Mr. Martin Groves, and I've known you ever since. I guess that was about 2020 or so.
Yeah.
So I've known you quite a while now. And I guess probably everybody knows me now because of a gentleman that came out and said he was a witness there at the attack scene, a gentleman named Roger. It was about Christmas time, and I was staying in a place called Standing Stone State Park. Barton, you might know that park.
Yes.
And if anybody remembers, it was around the time that missile came through, or the bomb or whatever it was, and blew up the AT&T building over in Nashville, Tennessee, and cut everybody's phone service.
Yeah.
Well, around that time, we were staying down at Standing Stone State Park, and we'd have to go to a very specific portion of the park to get signal. Me and my dad, we drive up one of these hills to get some signal, and I'm sitting looking at comments on YouTube, and this fella shows up with just a lot of odd, unusual details about that attack. I was like, Dad, look at this here. It's either me looking at comments or he was looking at comments. I'm sorry, I can't remember. But long story short, there's this gentleman who said he was a witness there, that he witnessed the attack there with the 4 individuals, and he watched them get attacked and killed, basically, and he escaped to live and tell the story. His story was, as Mr. Steve Causey mentioned, roughly the same as the original, with the variation that instead of the little girl being found dead in the tree, he said the family defended themselves, shot one of the creatures, and it presumably, I presume it crawled up in the tree and died from blood loss or something, and it was up dead in the tree. That's that gentleman's variation, and that video garnered about almost 600,000 views. It became pretty widespread, but that's probably what most people know me for, that particular interview, interviewing them.
So we're saying there's 2 creatures. Is that correct?
Yeah, he said in his version that there was 2 creatures, or that he believed there might be 2 creatures, because there was the initial one that got shot outside the front of their RV, and he heard the cries of the family inside saying it's coming through the window. So he presumed there might have been a second one coming up from behind.
His story was that he shot that creature twice. His dad shot him, and the boy shot him. So the creature was shot twice by the boy's dad and Roger, and it started ambling off down the creek when he crawled up underneath that camper. And while he was up under there, another one came up and started coming through the window, and that's what got the little girl and the wife. That was Roger's story.
There's been evidence support for him. There's been evidence against him. I don't know.
Well, I can tell you right now, I'm going to tell everybody right now, Roger Nichols, of all the people that I've met on YouTube, I used to be friends with. And I'm not saying Roger's story is true or it's false. I wasn't there. I would never call the man a liar, but I will stand up and say this. He is the one who stood by his word, and his word is 100% good. Everything that he's ever said, every word that he's ever given me, he's stuck to, and to the end. So you take that however you want to take it. Like I say, I wasn't there. I'm not going to call anyone a liar because I've had my own crazy experiences all my whole life. So I will tell you that Roger Nichols is a man of his word.
And I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm not going to call him a liar because I wasn't there. I wouldn't call any man's story just a lie publicly. But
right.
I wasn't there. I can't say yes or no, you know.
Exactly. I agree with both of you on that. Martin, can you hear us? Martin Groves, can you hear us, buddy?
I'm here, but I don't know
Okay.
if my mic is working. Is it
Yeah.
working,
Yeah,
Michelle?
it's working.
It's working.
Yeah. You want to fill in a little bit on what you and I have talked about over the years about this case?
I think it's been covered very well, and I really appreciate everyone tonight and the information. Steve Causey and his book, without doubt, is a superb book on the subject and upon the subject matter. I would add to this that Steve's book was excellent, and it's brought forth so many more witnesses over the years since it has been published. Steve was instrumental in forming this first town hall that we had with the Mike Weatherford show and Jimmy Smith and the Golden Pond Distillery that allowed us. They were gracious enough to allow us to come there and perform this. Without this, um, the new witness would have never come forth and approached Mike Weatherford and Steve Causey and myself. They had always been in the background and had remained hidden, and they did not wish to come forward, but they felt like they were compelled because in the date that we live in now and the times, and of course, with all the witnesses getting older, they felt like they should come forward. But let me explain something to everyone that's in earshot tonight. I have approached this case and all the other cases at Land Between the Lakes, and most folks, unless you have been a police officer, do not understand. You only have your word and integrity when you approach an investigation. You blow it one time, you're ostracized, your word in the courtrooms are no longer no good. One thing that goes with this is you protect your witnesses at all costs. You never divulge one name. And I guess I'm so strong with this tonight because I've been under constant attack for many weeks now. The public needs to understand we will protect our witnesses. We shall not divulge their names and given them to the public so they can be destroyed and attacked. In any type of a criminal investigation, when we have a confidential come forward, we'll lose a case before we ever notify the court system who that confidential informant is. With that said, we use that witness to build our case, and then we go forth and we build all the information that comes along with this case. Steve's work in this has been excellent, and we have built a case together that, without any doubts in my mind, is a very, very trained investigator. I have no doubts that this took place. 100% what Jan Thompson has come forth with and has given to Barton Nunnelly, and the book that he has written was extremely honest. It was full of only the truth, and the integrity of it holds so many years later. The integrity still holds today and will hold 50 years after we have left this earth.
Thank you for saying that.
What I would say to people who are in a crossroads, this information that has come forth, we will share as much as we can, protecting the new witnesses. I was a local president of the Fraternal Order of Police for our state, and many of these, how do I do this? Many of these TVA officers were members of my Fraternal Order of Police. Even though they worked at Land Between the Lakes, they lived in my county, and then some had transferred in and out of the Land Between the Lakes. What I have done is I have attained every TVA employee that I could get my hands on, every name. I have investigated and I have interviewed these people, these good folks, shouldn't say just people, all personnel that I could get my hands on with their names from the 1960s until now. So yes, the story is 100% true. We have a family that was murdered there. No matter what witnesses come forward, guess what, folks? I wasn't there. A lot of the people who are the critics and cynics of this, you weren't there. God knows the witnesses that were there that day, they knew what happened to them. And we can go forth from there with all these bits of information to establish beyond reasonable cause. We establish probable cause. So there's kind of where it stands. And I hope I said enough there in that last 5 to 8 minutes that might
I have to commend you for actually saying that, because if your witnesses don't feel safe coming
Yes.
forward, they're not going to come forward, and you need them to come
100%.
forward.
Yeah, 100%.
That is one of the problems we're going through right now. And I do know for a fact that this is the very reason why the witnesses are being attacked, because this makes the other witnesses hide in the shadows. I hid for many, many years.
Yeah.
If it had not been for Elijah Henderson's father, who spoken with me, I would have never come out of the closet. No one would ever heard my story. No one would ever know. Johnny Henderson was the very reason why I came out of the closet. He assured me the story needed to be told. Now, why am I saying that? Is because if you don't protect these witnesses, we have disruptors out there in the community that are purposely trying to shut the other witnesses down and their stories that have never been told. We must protect these people.
I agree. I think
a lot of disruptors out there, that's for sure. A lot of people.
I know that I've been to this particular spot with Barton, and I know I've been to this particular spot where this massacre supposedly took place in 1982, and I've been there with Martin and Barton and Ron and even Elijah, and that particular area still has remnants of the campground that once was located there. You can find part of the concrete slab, some other areas, and there, part of an old restroom. It's pretty obvious that the campground was there in that area at one time, and obviously they came in and demolished it for a reason, and I think we all know what that reason was.
One other little bit of information that I might give you, and I'm not saying it's from any particular witness, but there was an incident, and I'm pretty certain this did happen from the credibility of what I heard. There was an incident where a deuce-and-a-half truck once again overturned, and 2 soldiers were killed in the LBL. An investigator went to the scene to document it, and this investigator said these 2 soldiers were not killed by the overturning of this truck. They were torn up horribly. A trained investigator would know what happened at an accident site. I was with a rescue squad for many years, an EMT, and Mr. Groves can tell you this also. Police officers are trained to investigate vehicle wrecks. They know what to look for. They know what evidence to gather, and they know the look of the scene that's an accident. This scene was no accident. It was staged. These soldiers had marks on them that were not consistent with a vehicle wreck.
Okay, Steve, I'm not familiar with exactly what you're talking about. When did this take place?
I'd rather not say.
I mean, roughly since the actual massacre itself, and
it was in that time frame. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd rather not say, for the simple fact that I don't want to expose anymore, and Mr. Groves can kind of understand that.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't want to do anything to.
Okay, I'll take it a step further. After the witness had contacted Mike Weatherford, and then thus Steve Causey and myself. The information was given to me about the soldiers that were actually killed, and I ran with it. And what I did is I had a military police sergeant that had been stationed at Fort Campbell with 101st military police at the given time. The soldiers were not killed in a car accident, but the accident actually was staged. And one of the witnesses that we know of at this point questioned what had occurred. He had observed the bodies of the soldiers, and they knew that this was not a accident that had taken place. These soldiers had been killed by some animal attack. And yes, it is within the time frame. We cannot establish the date and time yet. And that's why Steve will not come forth with it. And so I'm the one going out on the limb as to what I have done since then. Yes, I have contacted someone with the military police, and this is a bona fide story. It coincides with what the witness has told to Steve Causey. More will unfold. Now, I will add this very quickly. For the folks that will come forth and say that either the story grows or that there is some form of embellishment, no, as the story grows and more information is obtained, so thus shall be an investigation. People will come forth 10 years later. It's not an embellishment. We have obtained more information. Murders have been solved 40 and 60 years later through new technology, new DNA evidence, or a witness that comes forth on their death scene. So this will come out sooner or later, where the soldiers were a victim of the attack of the creatures that roam that area.
I think all of these people deserve to have their story told, and they deserve, the families deserve to have this.
I agree, Michelle.
closure.
Yeah.
I do too. And Martin, don't freak out, but I think you have a Black Panther.
You do.
On your neck right now. Don't be
That
scared.
is Commander Ninja, who is my bodyguard, and I need one these days. Steve, I would ask, did what everything I say, was that all right to
Yes,
say
sir.
it in that manner?
Yes, sir. And I think that was excellent. As Martin said, we have to be careful. But when we had the town hall event, which I'm very grateful to Martin and Darrell for their participation in it, we said a prayer for this family. I ask everybody to bow because I know 100% it did happen. Martin knows 100% it did happen. Darrell knows 100% it did happen. So we said a prayer for this family. When you sit and consider what this family went through, it was just horrible. But we said a prayer for them. We know they're with the Lord now. And many of these witnesses, as Martin said, if you sit and consider, you have 30% of the people that think we're completely crazy. You have another 30% of the people that are a little more curious, but they don't want to think, due to public peer pressure, they don't want to be involved with this. Yet you have another 30 to 40% of the people that are open-minded enough or have had experiences themselves with these cryptids that know these stories are true. Martin, Mr. Groves, being one that probably has seen one of these creatures more closely than he ever wanted to see, was never believed in anything like this before this event happened to him. So it's amazing what can happen to somebody who has a close-up experience. There was a recent event that occurred not too long ago where a lady was attacked. It was shared with me by Mr. Groves. I believe you're the one that shared it with me. and she survived, thank goodness. But she said this creature that attacked her was dog-like. She did not say it was a dog.
Yes.
Is that correct, Mr. Groves?
Yeah.
Yes, correct. 100% spot on. And now they're attempting to step back on this statement that has been made, as well as to confuse the evidence to the public, the eye of the public, with the mitochondria DNA that has been given out. And this is standard procedure. And the general public must understand, you will be given every explanation to confuse you or to attempt to get you to distrust those of us that have come forward that are trying to get the information and trying to get to the truth. And these attacks will come against any information and evidence to sway you into believing that there is no such things as a Bigfoot, Dogman, or creatures in the world or paranormal events. But all you got to do is open up the historical book, the greatest book ever written, the books of the Bible and those that have been removed from the Bible, and you will see that these creatures have walked this earth since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Right. Now, Bubba, I don't know. I haven't heard. So have they released the DNA results from the attack in Oklahoma? What are they saying about that?
I have read one report that came from an Oklahoma police officer who is also a cryptid investigator. Unfortunately, he is still working on the job, and he can't say very much. He's already contacted me 2 or 3 times since this event has taken place, and I have not read the report other than what he has told me and the explanation that has been given on television. And so we're going to ultimately be told that this was a domestic dog. That is my consensus, that it's going to come out that this was a domestic dog. Another person tried to say that it was a bear attack. We're going to hear everything before it's over
Big
with.
cat, yeah.
Big
So what's
cat.
amazing to me is they have all these DNA control samples of big cats, dogs, and bear right there on hand, readily available for comparison. And yet it's
Yes.
been almost 2 weeks and they have yet to identify what attacked that lady. Don't you think that's strange?
It is very strange.
Yeah, I can tell you that I don't know if you've heard it or not, but there's also been an attack recently in Indiana similar to that one in Oklahoma.
Terre Haute, Indiana. Was that a sign of
Yes.
cephalai there, Michelle? Michelle's muted. Yeah, that's a sign of cephalai there.
Yeah.
I had a report a year ago of a recent sighting of one of those.
Here we go. Sorry. This is St. Christopher.
Oh, okay.
This is a depiction, a biblical depiction of St. Christopher, and I only put it up because Martin made, his comment about how far back it goes. This is just one example. So there it is. So sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to put it up there.
No, that's all right.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. There's supposed to be a whole different, species of man with the heads of dogs, and I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's familiar with the cynocephaly of the ancient cultures.
Go back to Anubis.
Right. I had another conversation with recently with a police officer. I won't identify him, but Martin's not even aware of this. But he was told by park officials, and this is a very credible individual, I know him personally, that you would not believe what is in the park, the LBL park.
Oh, I would.
You would, Steve.
I would believe it. Believe me.
Most of the people listening might not.
I would definitely believe it.
Yeah, I would too, brother. You know what's in those
I know Barton and I know Martin and Elijah knows quite a bit about there, and Ron Morehead he knows there's quite a bit of stuff in there. He's been with us there quite a few times. So
yeah, he was there with us when we got those screams, the responses to my Aztec jet scream, right? What do you think about that, brother Andy? That was pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, it was a good night. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when people say there's nothing in the park, there's no unknown animals in the park, they're flat out wrong. It's just that simple. Now, there's all kinds of strange stuff that goes on there. There's sightings of inhumanoids that are not dog man or Bigfoot, not even close, even stranger than those. So a lot of things going on there in that park.
You know, they say that Black Panthers don't exist in the park, but I can tell you a personal story. My father had retired from the Army in 1960, and he and I were headed to Dover, Tennessee. We lived in the land between the lakes. I spent part of my first grade in the land between the lakes, going to a school at Fort Henry, Tennessee, that was taught by a wonderful teacher named Miss Sally Martin. And we were headed to Dover, and I was with my father, and we were in a 1956 Ford. And as you know, the road has been modernized and blasted and everything, but at that time, this was a narrow road with a cliff overhang. And a Black Panther jumped within 30 feet of the front of our car with its long tail going through. And my dad asked me, "You know what that is?" And he said, "That's a Black Panther." So I know they're in the park.
Steve, if I may interject just a minute, you probably know where Indian Mound, Tennessee is, right?
Yes, sir.
So for those who don't, from the south entrance of LBL, it's about 27 minutes away. I have some family that lives in Indian Mound, and they told me that their neighbors had a Black Panther up in a tree firing at it. And that's no distance at all from the park, so they're probably all over the place.
And a lot of people think that, well, it is true that the park is 170,000 some odd acres, but Martin and I actually discussed this on our little trip in the LBL here a couple of weeks ago, that people don't consider that these animals know no boundaries. They don't have signs up that says no cryptids beyond this point. So if you sit and consider Indian Mound, you consider the all the refuges around there, you sit and consider the places such as Stewart State Forest, which I had a witness that's in my book I interviewed, which is a very credible witness. You're talking in excess of 300 to 400,000 acres, because, like I say, they don't see a sign that says, "Oh, no cryptids here," and turn around and go back. So these, and a more recent interview I did was with an Army lieutenant, and this is in my second edition. He and his wife were coming home through the Indian Mound area late at night. This was very late at night, and he saw something out of the corner of his eye. Now, keep in mind, this is a trained observer, a lieutenant who was trained to observe and with the military. And he put on his brakes because he could tell this thing was close to coming to his car. And I think this interrupted the pattern that this creature was taking. So it ran in front of his vehicle, and both his wife and he witnessed it. It was a large canine running on all fours that had a human body. He described it as having boar hog like fur around the neck, and this area right in here, it had a very large coyote in its mouth. And he described human-like arms that used to change the direction to prevent hitting his car, and ran across the road. They got a very good look at it. It was not any creature that is documented.
Was this on the south end or the north end?
This was not too far from the Indian Mound area. It was on Highway 79. As you know, there is a landfill that services both Montgomery County and Stewart County. This was not too far from where the fence for the military ends, and there's a church in that particular area. If you're familiar with that area, you know what I'm talking about.
I think I've been that area a few times, but I don't know that area as well as I'd like to. But
yes,
I would like
remote.
to. Bart, did you want to play that call?
Sure, I'll play it. If you guys want to hear it.
If you want to tell everybody what it is, of course, Ron is.
First. So, It was me, you, Brother Indy, who Ron Moore, we call him Indiana, Indy for short, and Bubba. We're all down in the LBL, and we've been riding around for a couple of hours. And the simple truth of it all is we was going down Red Hollow, and I asked Bubba to pull over somewhere so I could enter the call of nature. And he did. He pulled over in one of the empty campgrounds. This was, I think it was a Tuesday night, Monday or Tuesday night. No one in the park. And so I got out and I took care of my business, and I walked back to the driver's side, which Bubba was driving. And I said, Bubba, I think I'm going to try that Aztec death screen. And Martin goes, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I said, you remember that video that we did with Elijah and Gabby? We had that Aztec death whistle that we were blowing.
Yeah.
He said, oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember that. But what you don't know is the last 2 or 3 times you heard that whistle, it wasn't the whistle. It was me imitating the whistle, only much louder, right? A lot more decibels than that whistle could produce. So he said, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So I screamed, and it was just a second or two later, and something actually screamed back. I got a response, and we were all just shocked. I was completely shocked. I have a YouTube channel that was gifted to me a few years ago, and I'm supposed to be a YouTuber, but I'm not very good at it, because not one time did I think, take your phone out and record this. I wasn't expecting any response at all, but it was a huge response, and it sounded to me like it was about a quarter of a mile away. So I'm standing there, and I don't know what to do. Everybody's eyes are wide. You remember that, Brother Darrell, that night?
Yeah.
Thank goodness you were there, or this would just be another story without any evidence, okay? So not knowing what to do, I screamed again. And at this point, Darrell breaks out his phone and starts recording. So we're waiting for the second response. Ended up altogether getting three responses. Let's see here. And here it is. Now, I screamed the second time, and I got the answer from across the river. Now, that's a 1 mile wide at that point, right? I screamed the third time, and it got an answer from even further across the river. So, in my opinion, I screamed 3 times and was answered by 3 different creatures from different locations. It was sort of like a roll call, this note that I hit, right? And of course, I sent it to, I have a friend. He's a wildlife biologist with over 40 years experience in the Kentucky park system. And whenever I get anything that I'm not sure about, I send it to him. And he said, when he listened to this, he said, congratulations, Barton. Y'all got what most researchers never get their entire life. You have actually recorded the vocalizations of an unknown animal, because I don't know what that animal is. There's certainly nothing like that in the park systems that can make that sound. And as far as I know, no animal in the world that can make that sound. So I'm going to play it for you. I hope you guys can hear it.
Bart, you got a trigger response.
That's the second response. This is me screaming here, so I'll back off here. Now here's the third response. Magnified. That was me.
Not answering because it's coming. Damn me nightmare out there, brother.
So the last scream was not answered. The fourth scream was not answered. I'm glad it wasn't, because you can plainly hear that the first three, well, you can only hear two, but the first two responses were not simply echoes running up and down that river. You can also hear that there's a distance between the two vocalizations. So
Yeah, I thought that was
for
a good
those who
capture.
doubt that there are any unknown animals in the land between the lakes, I challenge you to tell me what animal that was. And that's just one of the pieces of evidence that the Brotherhood was able to gather in 2024. We had some world class evidence from the LBL, including what we think is an interdimensional portal. Right, Bubba?
Yes, sir. We were witness to the portal that opened up in front of us, and without any doubts, I know what that is and what has happened.
Right.
And
we also filmed or videoed something looking at us from behind a tree, not 20 feet away, with bright eyes, and none of us saw it, which is so strange. It's crazy. And I can show you that if you want to see that too. Thank you, brother South Force. Appreciate that.
Yeah, anything you want to show. That's incredible. That is so incredible. It really draws you in when it starts.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, if Brother Darrell hadn't been there, we never got this.
We've had some amazing things happen in the LBL. We really have. We've had some crazy stuff happen, and unfortunately, a lot of it wasn't captured on anything. It was just we were just there to witness it and not have anything to fall back on like that particular recording there. But that was good. That was a good capture, and Ron was in the front seat that night, and he got to hear it really well. So
it was crazy.
Man, Darrell got it when nobody else did.
I'll tell you one thing
that you guys, any skeptics out there, can try to explain. This is a deer kill that we found. I'm gonna try to get this where you guys can see it. Turn it down a little bit. So you can clearly see that in one picture, its mouth is almost closed. In the other picture, its mouth is open. So it tells me it was a moving animate creature. And
did you see eye shine? Question.
Well, we did not see that, Michelle. No one saw that. And this was actually 2 weeks later when I was, I had the phone out and I was with Jitesh Patel and a friend. We was eating at a restaurant, and I just happened to tell him, I said, "Hey, brother, we found a dead deer kill in the LBL." He said, "Oh, let me check it out." So I gave Letitia the phone, and she showed him that. I hadn't even looked at that. And they were watching that video, and they said, "Holy smokes, did you see this?" I know, what is it? And that's what was on there. And the amazing thing was we did not see that thing. As bright as those eyes were, how we could just overlook that. It's I can't explain it, but the whole park, when you enter that park, it's like it puts you under some type of
Oh,
spell.
no doubt. Yeah, when you pull in there, it's a weird feeling. It always has been.
Spell, and it makes you not really act the way that you would normally. And Bubba, he can tell you about that because we all did that. We reacted to that portal video. It was completely out of character for all of us. We only stood there for like 5 minutes when we should have stayed there all night. But we had plans to go to this church and check out this path behind the church in the woods. And I just can't explain us acting like that. Can you, Bubba?
No, and that night was totally out of context, but I think that was due to the fact that we were all being directed and affected by the force that actually came from the portal opening and then the beings that we saw. And Matt and I were able to actually see and hear. We're very intuitive and empaths, and but we could see and hear what I consider to be the American Indians that came out and were dancing around the fire. We could see them dancing, we could hear them chanting and singing, and we could hear an Indian drum that was in the portal. Michelle, I held my finger up there for a minute. I want to direct back to something that Steve Causey brought up before I forget it, and I've been taking notes to make certain that some things are being brought out. Over the years, I had investigated and spoken with many employees that I could get, even down to bulldozer operators. And we'll talk about Indian mounds sometime, but we have, in fact, Barton has come up with some exclusive evidence concerning the Indian mounds and how they all coincide with the story tonight about the LB Massacre. Steve, you brought up something that was very interesting, and the people should know about this. After this area was obscured, it was totally destroyed by the TVA. And may I say this too, it doesn't matter what investigator comes forth. It matters not. The encounter took place. It may be a half mile. It may be 50 feet. It could be a half mile up the road. What I got from the TVA employees that I investigated and that gave me truthful statements, dates, it goes straight back to when this park was destroyed. It goes to Steve's statement tonight. One of the creatures were in fact killed, one of the two, but one of them was traced to a cave. That cave led straight back below to where the branch run into the cave and the springs below it. That cave was purposely sealed shut, and even some of the concrete and the ground that comes from the LBL attack scene, that was all pushed down to destroy. You can't even tell that creek ran into that cave anymore. They have totally rerouted stuff. It's just amazing to me what these bulldozer operators were able to tell me. They took down everything. There's been 2 parks that has been destroyed in that area, and it was due to the attacks because they knew what these beasts, where they were coming from, and their routes they took. So they've taken out 2 or 3 different parks in that area. But I just had to say that, Steve. I really appreciate you bringing that up about the caves.
Thank you, Martin. And I wanted to say to Barton, very good recordings and everything. I really
Brother
appreciate Brother Darrell, excuse me.
It's hey, we're all a team together. It doesn't matter who recorded it.
Can you imagine being somebody who does not believe in these creatures? And as we're told, And the Land Between the Lakes is a very beautiful place. But can you imagine going in naive, not realizing that these creatures might exist, and hearing something like that scream while you're alone, camping and fishing in the LBL in your tent?
Well, that's the biggest reason that I know of that our team especially was sought out after to let people know that things like this exist. That's what Martin and I started off with quite a few years ago, because he doesn't want to feel responsible for someone going in there and having no idea. None of us do, that these creatures may exist. And you got, your grandparents taking the little kids to a camp in the middle of nowhere and camping in a tent all night. Now, they may be safe, but chances are something could happen and they're not aware of what's in the park.
Right. And so many people just sit back and talk about this stuff, brother. And
Yeah.
you and Elijah and Bubba knows that the only reason I'm down there is to kill one of these dogmen and put a stop to all these attacks and disappearances that go on down there, especially of little kids. I can't stand that. But I'm going to show y'all one more video. This is the video of an interdimensional portal. And then I'm going to have to get off here soon, okay? I don't know if I have the... this is,
Yeah. See it.
you see how it's pulsating on the trees around it?
Yes.
I have the audio turned down so we can talk over this. But Bubba and War Criminal 7, who was with us that night, they both saw figures around this thing. This is just one little piece of a 5-minute video clip that we took. Now, some people say that's somebody arc welding at 10:30 at night, out in the middle of nowhere, with thousands of downed trees taken down by a tornado.
When the lights are in one spot, if you're off-roading and moving around.
Right. Well, nobody can explain this, Michelle. And if anybody out in the audience can, please do, because I would like to know. The only reason I call it a portal is because Bubba and War saw figures dancing around this thing, and you can see there's a couple little lights there around it, but they fade out. And this
You can hear portals.
Right. So to our naked eye, Michelle, this thing looked like a big bonfire, and that's what we thought it was. But this is through the night vision camera. And we were standing there talking about how we're looking at a bonfire with no smoke. And the girls called me up there and said, "Hey, come look at this through this night vision." And that's what it looks like through night vision. You can see there's no smoke coming up. It's not a fire of any kind. So,
and it's too consistent to be arc welding. Anybody who's ever arc weld knows that's not very consistent light.
There's not a consistent pulse of like that. So we don't know what it was, but that's just some of the evidence that we got from the LBL in 2024 for all you skeptics out there that deny there's anything strange going on in the park system. There's 3 pieces of evidence that I've presented to you. Still waiting on an explanation for any of them. And if any of the audience knows what they are, please let someone know or get in contact with me. So,
well, I think I know that Martin and Barton were there the night, and several other people. Elijah, when we witnessed that, I'd never seen anything like it before. When we all went out different directions, and I think Elijah was in a vehicle with Matt and Gabby, and Elijah, I think y'all witnessed snakes crossing the road. Lots of snakes
all over the place.
It's not just
all sorts
go ahead.
Of animals. Beaver off the road. There's snakes. There's deer.
Just out of nowhere, and this was about the same time now that a regular moon in the camp we're sitting at, the moon turned to a reddish orange color out of nowhere. And everybody went out in different directions, and we had all kinds of encounters. I think Elijah and them even witnessed a dogman type creature across the road, didn't you?
I missed it. I would have loved to have seen it. The gentleman we were driving with and my sister, we were all going down the road. It was about 11:30, something like that. We went all the way out to that little gas station and got a little little bit of snacks and whatnot. Went all the way back in, and we're coming up the trace roughly around the area where the hunter check-in station is, and we're coming through there. I'm just gabbing my head off, looking over at Matt driving, just shooting the breeze, and him and my sister in the back start going, "Whoa, whoa, what was that?" I'm like, "Whoa, what did you see? What was it?" And he backs up, and they're saying, "We seen something crossing the road," and both of their descriptions was something hairy, walking on all fours, looked like a hairy man going across the road, a muscular hairy man, and it had a short muzzle and pointy ears, and there's not a whole lot there that matches that description.
No, no.
They said it was a spider crawling across the road.
Yeah, yeah. This was
very weird.
Almost like crawling across the road.
That was also the night. Logic. Yeah,
Mhm.
that was also the night that Letitia and Sister Anna went out and saw that winged creature with the piercing red eyes. Like a
the winged ones?
like a baby Mothman.
Like a
miniature
gargoyle.
Mothman, right? Yeah, it had
Mothman,
laser red pointed eyes, and it was standing on the side of the road. It was only about 20 inches tall, but it raised out its wings, unfurled its wings, and just shot straight up without flapping its wings a single time. It was like, they both described it as like it was getting sucked up by some huge vacuum cleaner or something, and it was gone.
You know, your area, you guys, like there's a lot of talk about different entrances into the theory, and I have to say theory, of an inner earth. Navajo Nation has one as well. Things come out of there all
I'm very familiar with that.
freaking
Yeah,
time.
Mammoth Cave in South Central Kentucky was the largest known cave system in the entire world, with almost 500 miles of underground passages discovered, and they estimate that there's at least 500 or 600 more left to be discovered. And no, the portal itself did not make any noise.
Yeah, because
we didn't notice any noise, or I didn't.
Yeah, because I mean, I've been around portals. Some of them do make like buzzing noises or crackling noises or humming noises. If you ever hear that, you're near a portal. But this would have been too far for you, I think. But you know, if you guys are just sitting there, wandering through and it's quiet in the woods and you hear that, that's. I was in the haunted forest in Romania, and it had a droning sound that kept going on. It's all you kept hearing. It was massive. It was crazy. It could drive you crazy if you didn't just like concentrate on something else. It was ridiculous. There's some questions. I know you have to go, Bart. I just want to include this question because it's somebody wrote in to me before the show, and you are mentioned in here. So I'll read it. It says, Darrell and Barton Martin. The 1982 incident leaves a lot of unknown. With Barton, with the spirits of the LBL, contact was made with Doc Man. And I'm just reading this as is, guys. One thing I didn't notice was the fatigue, the normal right or left brain stab that these animals do. Could these animals have been projecting themselves on the one person, or how they saw the dog man point blank and said, like, welcome home, as in Martin Grove's 1993 incident, where the physical like presence in the camp was destroyed? I'm wondering if it was a 10 gauge or 12 gauge. You guys are going to know this. I'm just reading it. 10 gauge, even birdshot would have done massive damage, yet the creature was still alive, in pain, but alive. Were there any signs of glowing eyes on the animal? Inhumanoid hit with the 10 gauge. And then he starts talking about Burbank Lake, 86, 87, Bart.
Oh my goodness, yes, that was a terribly scary night for me and my little brother.
Yeah, it's big. It's convoluted. So I'll let you answer what you want.
There. Yeah. So, to my knowledge, the beasts of LBL, according to Roger's story, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, he shot it with a 20 gauge, I think, a bird shot, but at close range, even bird shot.
It was a small caliber. I was told it was a 410, but you could be right. It was a small caliber shotgun.
It's been 4 years since I heard that story, so I know it was a small caliber shotgun. And And even the dad who shot it wasn't a 12 gauge. I think it might have been a 16 gauge or something like that.
Right.
We saw nothing during the Burbanks Lake encounter. But what we heard was similar to last weekend that Bubba and I and Matt and Jessica Jones encountered, only it was much more intense. Breaking limbs, tree breaks, tree snaps, footsteps of 4 or 5 of these creatures circling around us in the dark. And we were stranded on the far side of a haunted lake. They called it a haunted lake. We just wanted to fish. We wasn't there for any other reason but to fish. And we got stranded on the far side of that. And as soon as dark fell, these sounds started coming out of the woods and circling around us. And we knew exactly what it was because of the Spotsville monster incidents back in 1975. We both thought we were going to die. But luckily, we had a half a gallon of kerosene there, and I managed to start a small fire. All the foliage and limbs was wet. It was stormed there a couple of days earlier. But I let the sounds get in very close. And I would throw a shot of that kerosene in the fire, and it would flare up. And I could see 50 or 60 feet all around us, at least a 50 or 60 feet radius, and there was nothing there. And the fire light would die down, and the noises,
Wow.
the tree breaks and the limb snaps would come right to the edge of the darkness. And I'd let it get a little, we wanted to at least see these things, while it was going to kill us. And I would let it get a little closer each time, and I'd throw another shot of kerosene in there. Never saw anything. It just happened 5 or 6 times. And the very last time I let it get within 10 feet, the noises within 10 feet of it. And keep in mind, these were all around us. It wasn't just in front. They were all around, circling around us. I let it get within 10 feet, and I threw the last of the kerosene in the fire, and there was nothing there. We heard nothing. No growls, grunts, breaths, any noise of any kind other than the tree snaps. And that's when I took a little branch off the fire, and it had a flame on it about an inch tall. It was a little skinny little branch. All we had for weapons were our fishing poles. We didn't have any weapons at all. And I took that branch and I said, "Okay, brother, get ready. We're going to have to swim for it." And we started backing down to the water. And these sounds followed us right down to the water's edge, even where there were no heavy limbs and stuff to break. That's why I think these sounds could be an artificially induced auditory hallucination. Generated by creatures. But we got down to the lake, to the water's edge, and I said, "You ready? You ready? We're going to swim for it." And he said, "I'm ready." And just that time, I heard my brother on a one-man bass boat say, "Hey, what's going on over there? What's going on?" And we started yelling, "Hurry up, hurry up." We just couldn't go very fast with that little trolling motor that he had, right? But when he hit the bank, he said, "Okay, which one's next?" And I said, "We're both next. We're both next, Bubba. There's something over here. Something's going on over here." He said, "Oh, there's no way this boat can hold 3 people." I said, "We're fixing to find out. And if it can't, we're going to be 3 swimmers because nobody's staying over here." And we got on the boat, and we were like a quarter inch away from sinking the boat. And it took like an hour to get across that lake, and I never was so glad to reach my vehicle as I was.
Wow.
Okay, so he goes on. I just want to break this up. And I'll limit it. I'll limit it for you. So he talks about a little bit about government animals, unnatural in humanoid because they lack supernatural abilities. He goes, "I apologize for the poor context here," but he goes, and this is something you guys might all want to chime in. So when it comes down to all of this, suggests to me government made clones to defend against these inhumanoid creatures. The April 7th, 82 date is an official record, but I do believe there was a Labor Day one as well that brings question of a pre-programmed subliminal orders with a government dogman. A 4-member family. Is it possible the government was targeting a 4-member werewolf or dogman family, and then lost control of 2 government creatures? One died April 7th of 82, other was killed in May of 82. And then it goes, is it possible, he questions the dates sort of thing. So
sure, it's possible that the government, they're making these, we have to understand who controls the government. according to the word of God, Satan controls all governments. So I do believe that these things are sometimes, so at least one type of them, created by our own government. And the reason I think that's the 2021 Congressional Chimera bill. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that,
Wow.
but they actually came out and tried to limit the amount of human DNA they could mix with animal DNA. And I think the bill was shot down and all that. But anything the government comes out and admits that they're doing, you can bet that they've been doing it for 50 to 70 years before that. So, yes, I do think the government are making, all the governments of the world are making skin suits for these evil entities or demonic entities to inhabit, because that's what they do. But also, I think that the werewolf is a totally different deal than the dog man. Totally different.
Yeah.
I don't think the government is creating werewolves.
Mm-mm. I agree. It sounds like you're talking about the whole phenomena theory.
Yes,
Yeah, it's pretty deep rabbit hole, but it's very
it
fascinating.
is.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. Okay. Well, that's it for for that part of thing, and then
Sure.
the questions for Elijah, question for Steve, Ron. You guys just let me know which order y'all want it. Try to
Uh, who
I have a
wants to?
question for Steve, real quick. How long had those campers been there before they were attacked? Do they know?
It was a very short period, from what I heard. They had basically just started setting up the camper, getting the campfire going. Not a long period at all, and supposedly right at dusk. And I think, as Eliza had mentioned and also Barton had mentioned from Barton's interview with Jan, that pretty much seems to be consistent in the time frame. Is that correct, Barton?
That's correct. They were there just a few hours.
Was there any idea of what the motive might have been for the
No.
dog to attack them?
I heard for years and years. I don't know how true it is, but I've heard it many a time that there was some type of perfume that supposedly was wore, or some type of aftershave, and I know y'all probably heard that also
Yeah,
that
I don't believe that.
agitated these creatures.
I think Martin might be able to contribute a little bit here, because he's familiar with the cryptid huntress, and she was a remote viewer, and I had seen her video of where she saw this incident, and she was able to get interpretations from this creature basically not wanting to invade what he considered its territory. Is that correct, Martin?
Yes, and I concurred with Jessica, Miss Jones, that this was a territorial attack. And while I'm speaking, everything that Elijah and Barton and Darrell, and especially you, Steve, the public should know that everything that Elijah and everyone has been speaking of tonight, we have a triangle. We have from the initial attack site down to Russian Creek and the other, we have about a little over 14-mile scale triangle that I call the Dogman Triangle. And all this area that is contained where this, now Michelle brought something up, and I'll let someone else speak. Michelle brought up 2 dates. We have the April attack, and we have something that occurred in May. I think I can shed some light that will also coincide with what Michelle has said. The TVA officer came forth and gave me his statements that after the attack that took place at the initial attack site of 82 in April, where the family was killed, they were told to continue to do the patrol in the immediate area and attempt to protect the campers. And then a short distance away in the month of May, a TVA officer made contact with a father, mother, and an infant child that was barely walking, and it was a little girl. And to this day, we have sightings of concerning paranormal activity. But the TVA officer left the family, and he could not live with the fact later on what had taken place. But that family he had spoken to were slain in Demumbers Bay 1 month later after the April 82 attack. So, May of 1982, we have 3 more people that were slain in Demumbers Bay, only a short distance from the initial attack site.
Were they able to locate the being that was responsible?
That part is unknown. I understand that there was a search party and there was a shooting involved later, 24 hours after this incident. And what is very interesting is what the TVA officer had advised me, that this little girl that was missing, her body was never found. And the attack scene revealed that it was another canine attack, some form of a wolf-like creature on 2 legs. And what is very interesting is so many people report the general description of this mother is still seen in the immediate area looking for her daughter all these years later, wearing a sundress bloodstain.
Wow.
Yeah, when it comes to hurting the little kids, I just can't hardly stand it to hear that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm out there with my sword and spear. I don't think putting little holes in these creatures is going to do anything, but I touch them with that sword, brother. I think that's going to do something. So,
See,
I've been trying for 3 years and they've yet to step out on me. But maybe it'll happen before I get too old to swing that sword.
See, my question with all of this, it's a national park, right? It's been turned into a national
U.S.
park.
Forestry.
Right. Yeah. And you have these territorial beings, and you obviously have military that, to me, there's 2 sides to every coin. They don't want you in the space. These beings don't want you in the space. But if you are, let's say, working a hybridization program, or you're just tinkering around, so to speak, with certain beings, whatever the case may be, you kind of have to know how they're going to behave, right? So why not just close the place down? It seems there's more against it, and they really don't want people there, and these beings certainly don't want you there. So why?
I'm not sure that that's not a possibility. We've talked about this before over the years. I'm not sure that they don't want to shut part of it down or all of it.
They're closing it down one road at a time, brother.
Exactly.
Right now, as we speak.
Well,
so they are.
You got campgrounds in there. There's a one particular campground that's always just mystified me, and of course everybody that's in here knows what I'm talking about mainly. But this campground had a store in it. It had basketball courts. It had tennis courts. It had camping facilities. I don't know how many camping sites there were, but it was a great number of them. And even had a small public store and bake shop inside the campground with a very capable bridge that was in fantastic shape. And I think, Martin, 3 years ago, they closed it down because they said the bridge was the bridge was a possibility of failure. And I know that Barton and myself and Martin went in there, and I'm pretty sure that an architect even looked at it and didn't see any issue with the bridge.
My scientist friend looked at it, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. And we later on, I think it's just a couple months later, saw where they've been driving track holes across it and heavy machinery across that same route.
We're talking about barricaded where you can't get in there. It's completely closed down, abandoned. We're talking about a really nice campground.
To this very day, at various stages since we have discovered this, they are still driving full-size bulldozers across this bridge, yet it's still shut off to the public.
I heard a story from witnesses. I won't say I heard. I researched. I saw it. I read it, where there were people who were staying in the LBL, and they saw a covered military vehicle, one similar to what Steve was discussing. There was a cage on it with a dog man in the cage, and they were just hauling off with it.
Wow.
So, believe half of what you read, half of what you see. It's like, but I found it interesting. Nothing surprises me because most national parks have bases underneath, like underground. So,
so does the LBL. Yeah.
Right. So you're going to hit some kind of level of high strangeness in there, whether it's just, human manipulated or not. I have a question for Elijah. The LBL. There was a YouTube clip on the Cryptid Institute with a blue eye glow. Can you elaborate where that took place? Seems to be a lot of activity on the racetrack. Hollow FS 131 being the area. It's odd because red, orange, and yellow are typical. Blue seems to be a special possible elders dogman. Are there any description of the encounter? Would be great.
The only thing I can really think of that they might be talking about is I was in a place down there in Land Between the Lakes and got bluff charged by something, and we seen some blue eye shine, which I've always heard that blue eye shine is kind of synonymous with dogman encounters. We were in a spot and we were camping in this area. Long story short, we didn't camp there the night because there's a bunch of cottonmouth snakes. It was down by a creek, so we're packing up all of our gear and whatnot. And my dad, he seen some orange eye shine over on the other side of this creek. It's like, hey, there's some orange eye shine. Let's go check it out. Go over there. We get our trail cam and we're looking around. It's just a raccoon. But we're shining our light around in the darkness, and I see way up ahead some blue eye shine, like in between these two trees. I was like, Dad, do you see that eye shine over there? And he says, where that really dark spot is? And at that exact time, something hits one of those trees and kind of starts, swinging around like that. And there's some sort of a really deep guttural grunt or growl or something or something like that. Dad put his hand on my chest, starts backing me away. There's a cottonmouth coiled up in the road that was worse than that's probably worse than what we just heard. And we decided to stay there a little bit longer. Weren't ready to go home yet, so we sat around in some of these camp fold-up chairs we had tiki torches kind of lighting up the place, and we just sat around and just listened. And I had a silent dog whistle with me, and my dad says, "Why'd you still got that whistle with you? Why don't you give it a puff?" Give it a puff. Nothing. Kind of sound. There's a little tip on the end. You can adjust the sound that comes out. So adjust it a little bit. Blow on it again. And 40 seconds later, it literally sounds like a T-Rex or something coming through the woods, just snapping branches, breaking limbs. And we did get that recorded, and it's pretty impressive sounding, but it's spooky to be right there in the middle of that. This is sort of off topic, but what made this exponentially worse is that one of our tiki torches, we couldn't get it to blow out. Those birthday candles that you light and then just keep relighting after you blow them out.
Yeah.
As soon as we blow it out, you just relight. We're trying to get out of here because just got bluff charged or something. So that was really great.
It's always good to be logical. Okay, question for Steve. Steve, I got the book off Amazon, skimmed over it before writing this. The April date. So he's mentioning the April date again. I think Martin addressed this as well. The April date is possible. There was another date in May. You hear a gunshot. Victim reports April from various people, especially on Reddit, and people who witnessed a large police presence there in 1982. So that's, I pretty much thinking what Martin addressed. Because he keeps going back to the May incident.
Yeah. April 7th is kind of the given date. If I had some context about what happened with the park closing, I could give you the exact date. But keep in mind, this was over 40 years ago. I pride myself on my long-term memory, but even my memory is not that good to remember a specific day. But April 7th is the given time frame, and I think Eliza and Barton probably can add a little bit to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
April
for
7th is the date given by Roger Nichols. Jan Thompson gave no date, at least not to me. And the part of my book about the Beast of LBL, I let her write. I did not change one single word. So
excellent. And
I
Elijah,
can't
Martin?
use dramatizing anything that she might have said, or changing or editing anything she might have said. Mysterious Kentucky Volume 1 is Jan Thompson's story in her own words, not mine.
Ironically, April 7th is one of the days historically they believe that Jesus died on. April 7th is one of those days believed to have been the day. So I don't know how that weighs into anything.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. You're right about that.
No coincidences, really.
Never. Never.
No.
Don't believe in those. Martin, anything you want to add?
Concerning the dates, the TVA officers that I had interviewed, as well as the new witnesses that's come forth with Steve, we share a month of April. We cannot give the exact date and time, but we also have something that came forth from Grand Rivers of a write-in. You didn't have recording 911 at that time in '82. The dispatchers used something called a call-in or write-in on their radio log, and they would either take a call-in by public service, which was the public service cell phone, or a walk-in, which meant you walked into the police or sheriff's department. So we coincide with the month of April for the death of the family, the initial family, and then the month of May for the trio that was killed in Mummers Bay. Not sure how much more time you got, but I want to get this point across. Everyone has heard tonight how that the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all 6, 7, and those of us in the chat room tonight, how we've all worked together. Can you imagine using the concept of Ron Morehead of keeping an open mind in using all the evidence and encounters and witness statements instead of attacking everyone, instead of attempting to the jealousies, the petty jealousies that come forth with evidence, whether if you're in the national parks, you're in Land Between the Lakes. You see how well all of us work together tonight. We've been sharing information. We're attempting to get to the truth of a matter. And all of us here tonight have an open mind.
Isn't it all about truth in the end? Isn't it all about the research?
Yes, it is.
It is. It's not about the views, the clicks, the book sales or attention or anything. It's all about just the opportunity to tell everyone the truth. And, right. They can believe what they want. It's not our job to make anyone believe anything, but we're telling the truth. And all the evidence that I've shown tonight, it was all completely 100% real. Yeah. And that's why I'm here is to maybe show somebody what's really going on. It's not for any other reason other than that.
That's why in the show description, I start off with a meeting of the minds.
Exactly.
Right. And I want to say one more thing, Phil.
Yes, of course.
We're doing this. A lot of people don't realize how really dangerous it is out in the Land Between the Lakes at night. We're actually risking our lives in order to bring people a better understanding of what's going on and what's out in those woods. There are 100 different things that can kill you out in those woods in the daytime. And at nighttime, there's even more. So every time we go out there, we're actually risking our lives out of the kindness of our hearts in order to bring people knowledge. sure there's a lot of people that scoff at what we do and ridicule and try to undo what's been done for 20 years already. But they'll never do that. They'll never cancel the truth. And we're doing this for the right reasons and not for fame and fortune and attention and money and all this other stuff. So
You just might save lives. Right.
Well, that's been the whole point from day one, what I've understood. You know, the thing about the LBL, you may go there in the daytime or even in the nighttime, not have any type of encounter or anything at all happen.
Mm-hmm.
But then you may go back and something very serious could happen. And I can assure you one thing, when the lights go out in the LBL, it's a whole different place. It's not the same place it was in the daytime.
And this is not as isolated to the LBL as well. There's eyewitnesses of these creatures all over the country. You take, for example, the Bray Road Beast, well documented. Different national parks. We're not trying to pick on the LBL. It's just that that's where a lot of the research is done by all the members that are in this podcast, and so we have more familiarity with this area.
Sure. Thanks, Steve.
Any last words? Don't mean to sound so dire, but any last words?
I just want to say thank you for having us all on this podcast.
We're sure glad to have everybody. Thank you everybody for being here.
It's important to have 5 members of the Brotherhood on one podcast at the same time.
It is that. Ron and myself and Michelle appreciate y'all being here. We think the world of you, and we appreciate you sharing all your knowledge with everyone.
And thank you to
everybody.
It's been
a great night tonight.
I've had a great time just sitting back and listening to all of these incredible experiences.
Great to see all my wolf brothers in one time, you know.
Yeah.
We're not in the LBL. I can still look at you. It's just great to see you. I love all you guys. And hopefully I'll see you again real soon. I know
we love all you guys, man.
Yes, Martin.
I'd like to close out tonight thanking everyone, and especially the public that listened to us tonight. But I got a little something that I might just ask of you, everyone. If you do not believe in these things and you're not convinced they exist, we've just had a friend, Steve, and all of us know this gentleman who's he was a great hunter, one of the greatest hunters ever. Yet his mind was just changed because of the evidence that he found inside the land between the lakes of many foot tracks and the type of encounters that he had. I'd challenge you, and I'll be very much open to, if you contact me and you want to go to the very depths, deepest, darkest caverns of land between the lakes, I'll be happy to take you there to stay. And then you can make a decision in your mind if these creatures exist.
Right. That's good, brother. And you know,
that's quite an offer.
I never tried to discourage or dissuade anyone from going to the land between the lakes. If you hear that about me, know that it's false. I want everyone to come there. I want every cryptid researcher out there to come there to land between the lakes. I want to experience some of what we've experienced, and that will validate everything that I've ever written about that place and have been writing for 20 years now. So everyone come down, just be careful. If you bring kids, I wouldn't advise anyone to bring kids, but if you do, please keep your eye on them and come see for yourself. Don't sit there and scoff at people that are actually out there putting it all on the line to bring you a little bit of truth. Come see for yourself.
And for those who've never heard of it, because I have to say, you know, I've been in research and media for like a couple of decades, and I had never heard of the land between the lakes, and I was getting an influx. I know. After I heard about it, I'm like, how the hell did I not know about this? Anyway, but
it is the most active cryptid research area in the entire world.
I know, and it's how I had Ron on the show. And, never mentioned the land between the lakes, but anyway, people kept asking for it. So I connected with Darrell because it's like, because my backyard, I'm like, all right, I want you. And
Yeah.
the stuff that I learned in researching all of this, because I'm an avid researcher and thorough, I will cross-reference everything to death a million times. I cannot come up with one source. Everything you guys are saying, there's not one thing I found that can contradict anything of what you guys have said. This is like the pièce de résistance of this kind of activity. And I really feel that whatever is out there is just barely scratching the surface of what you guys know.
It is. It is.
I agree with that statement.
Point in fact, hit Jessica Jones, the cryptid huntress.
Yeah.
The most recent witness to this paranormal strangeness and what these creatures are. She was our last eyewitness that had just taken place this very week within a 7-day period.
Yes, and our newest wolf sister, by the way.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
a good one too.
Yeah.
I was going to say, where's the sisterhood in all this?
Well, we have wolf sisters. Yes, we do, and they're great women and very brave, and they're not posers. They want to get out there in the thick of things, just like us men. They don't want to sit at camp and watch the fire or keep the fire going. They're right out there with us. So,
well, I will ask you this. Okay, dealing with these type of beings, do the experiences, because you still have, like male beings like Bigfoot or Dogman, and you got guys are all full of testosterone, and the women being
Darrell. Just
but
thank you, brother.
Do the accounts vary as per experiences for women compared to men? But I'm not, or that type of energy. I guess I need to rephrase that because I don't want to offend anybody. That type of energy.
Right. We've never been women, Michelle. None of us here have ever been a woman. So.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, like, have you heard your researchers? People come to you and will give you their encounters, right?
I think that it's about the same with women as it is with men. They just scare the hell out of you, and I think that's mainly what they want. They feed off fear, mainly, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I agree.
Once they get enough of that, then I think they're done. But
particularly the dog men seem to feed off the fear, and dog men are not known for their pleasant dispositions.
Right.
See, I've always had amazing relationships, even with wild wolves. So that's why I ask. Do I want to just go, get bit in the rump by just throwing caution to the wind and jumping right in there? Or do I want to just kind of proceed with caution?
Well, we try to protect the ladies. We don't let them, I'll go out without one of us with them if we can keep from it. Sometimes they're a little headstrong and they do their own thing, but I try to protect everybody in my group. And I've never had anyone in 40 years of expeditions all over the state of Kentucky. I've never had anyone injured in my presence except for Bubba. And we were sitting at camp around the campfire, and Brother Darrell knocks a log off onto Bubba's leg and breaks his leg and breaks 2 toes.
Oh, so it was Darrell's fault.
It was Darrell's fault.
I'll take the second on that one. It was the Bell Witch that got it.
Well, they just started talking about that, and I warned them, don't talk about that. Don't say the name, whatever you do. And then that happened. So
there's always got to be one in the group that carries the shenanigans too far.
Yeah.
He's the pyro.
We don't speak of the Bell Witch in the camps. That's for sure.
That's okay. You just speak about it to millions of people listening tonight.
We didn't say her name.
Well, thank you guys for being on. It was such a pleasure sitting across from you all tonight, and just a wealth of information, a real treat for me. And thanks to everybody in the chat room. Of course, you guys are just awesome. I appreciate all of your comments and questions. And who knows, maybe we just do a part 2 and get into some other crazy.
Yeah, we might have to do that. And I want to thank everybody for being here. I really do. Martin, Steve, Elijah, my brother Ron and Michelle for guiding us a lot along as normal. And it's been a great show. I appreciate all the audience and everybody watching. And thanks everybody for being on. We'd like to have you on again sometime.
Good seeing you guys.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
God bless everyone.
Yeah.
Elijah, Barton,
Good night, Andy.
Martin,
Good night, Steve and
you
Michelle.
guys be good.
I'm
Good
feeling
night,
like a
brother
wolf.
Elijah.
Feeling like a wolf.
Just careful, be safe.
And
All right.
thank you
Have no
all.
fear. Fear is your enemy.
There you go.
Amen, Ron.
Ron said the right
Amen,
thing.
Ron.
Love and light your way out. That's what you
Yeah.
have to do.
Not everyone.
Good
I
night.
love everyone. God bless you.
Love you, brother. Not everyone.
Love you, brother.
Good night, everyone, from Two Real Cryptid Legends and the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. Have a terrific week and good night.
Good night.
Good night.